If you don't know what gumcha is,
I know Google.
as people, I know I am good.
Welcome to Young and Adventist.
Welcome to Young and Adventist.
Welcome to Young and Adventist.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Young and Adventist. Today we want to be discussing the Sabbath, why we keep the Sabbath, what the Sabbath means to us, and sort of just everything around that idea of the Sabbath in regards to SDAs and the Sabbath as a whole. So before we begin, I want our panelists of the day to introduce themselves. I will start with my guide. That's your name.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanya, and I am super excited to be here.
Hi, Tanya.
Honestly, right?
Hi guys. My name is Bobby Thambu, and I'm also excited to be in this episode.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode. My name is Faith Wawuda, and I hope you're as excited as I am.
Thank you. And my name is Wawuda. So you know I'll be giving. And I'm happy to be here today. So I want to start by asking our panelists, what do people ordinarily say when you say that you go to church on Saturday? Or like when you say that you keep the Sabbath? Because I know that sometimes people find it weird. Like actually this morning I went to Galleria, whatever you call it. And it's Sunday, by the way. And the lady was, they do the beep beep thing. She asked me, did I go to church? And I was like, oh, I go to church on Saturday. Then she laughed. And I was like, sorry, it's funny. I went to church yesterday. So like, just ordinarily, what do people say when you tell them like, I go to church on Saturday? Yeah, that's not for me.
I think my experience with some people, when I tell them I go to church on Saturday, they're just like, why are you guys here? Oh my god, you just look like an Adventist. I'm like, okay. Is there a specific mode I'm supposed to telling you? Like, no, because I'm supposed to dress in that long dress with like head stuff. But yeah, that has been my experience. Funny story, there's a time I went to buy shoes, and this lady, so I like block heels because they're comfortable. So I need a comfortable heel. And I told this lady what I was looking for, and she's like, why do you want shoes like dentist? Guys, I'm just looking for comfort, So that has been my experience. Yeah.
But maybe because you're Adventist, you're just drawn to that.
I know that's good.
Anyway, that's a stereotype, yeah. But Bobby, what
For me, they usually ask you. Most of them are usually shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're like, are you SBA? And I'm like, okay. I usually think, okay, does one have to be an Adventist in order to, keep the Sabbath? Because there are different denominations which people still go to church on Saturday. And yeah, they're not necessarily like Adventist. Yeah, so most people ask if I'm SDA, but I'm like, it's something that I've chosen. Yeah, it's something that I've chosen. I prefer spending my time with God on Saturday. Yeah, so if it's a decision that I made, most people usually shocked. Yeah, but I'm like, yeah, I'll have to keep it. Yeah.
Okay, Tanya?
I think mine's the same as Faith. I think the moment people find out you're Adventist, immediately they're like, oh, you don't look Adventist. And they'll start like obviously asking a lot of questions about like, oh, so if you plan something, you can't come. Like, can you come in the afternoon? And just trying to get like idea of what are you available for and like how extreme are you. I think people have this idea that Adventists are very extreme, and that's what usually comes out. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's true. It's actually a bit funny how people speak to you when they find out you're Adventist. Because on the side, asking, so you don't eat meat? So you can't eat. So when you Messiah? Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's also like, how am I supposed to look as an Adventist? Like, what idea do people have of us that they should look at us like, that's an Adventist? Like immediately they should just know it. And also just following up on what you've said about like people now being like, okay, come afternoon, okay, do this. Like, does it then begin to feel like it's a burden being an Adventist? Because I know lots of times like you're invited to something and so I start saying, I can't come. They're like, why? I go to church. Oh, you can't come afternoon. So like, does it begin to feel like it's a burden?
Okay, where I'm at now, it doesn't. I think because I've obviously grown in my faith and gotten a better understanding of what the Sabbath is and how it benefits me. But a young and Tanya, was being told, oh, you can't go for your friend's birthday party, oh, you can't go for that trip, oh, you can't go for this thing, used to feel like being Adventist is the worst thing ever. When I grew up, I'm changing denominations, but with time and with understanding God's purpose for the Sabbath and seeing how it benefited me as a Christian, I stopped seeing it as a burden.
Yeah. How much you think?
Well, for me, it's not the same as Tanya because I grew up in the Adventist church. So majority of my friends are Adventists, and everything that we want to do, we do them on a Saturday together because we're together on a Sabbath, yeah? But the days it felt like a burden was because it felt like I was coming to the office being a leader in the church. So you've dealt with people the entire week, you've worked the entire week, then you come to church and you have to pick up against the mantle and you have to direct people and give them instructions. It began to feel as like a burden to me. So I would come to church and I wouldn't be there mentally or physically present because I just feel exhausted and I'd rather just stay at home and watch online. But with time, that has sort of changed because I realized I should stop relying on my own strength and give it to God. I mean, it's God's work at the end of the day. So He's the one who's going to equip me with the strength I need and guide me in the right way. I should fulfill the tasks that are at hand. And also, God has a fine way of teaching you to let go of control because I'm one person who likes to be in control of things. But being in leadership taught me to rely on others more than relying on myself. So as of now, it's no longer a burden. Yeah.
Okay, and I feel like that's something that we need to talk about because I've had like some leaders in church saying that church no longer feels like just something that they come and they rest and from all the things that have happened during the week. It begins to feel a lot like I have to go and then someone's gonna stress me. Like, can you enter church like this? Like a job. And everyone is coming at you and like, yeah, like I just wanted to rest. Can I go to rest?
Yeah.
And so by the time your time is over and they're asking, can you do another time? Like, hey, no. And then you start falling back from church and all these things. So it's also something like that we need to discuss. How can we help our leaders, have an easier job so that it doesn't feel like a burden when they're coming to church as well. Yeah. Bobby, what do you think?
For me, keeping the Sabbath, I don't feel like it's a burden. Okay, there are times it used to feel like a burden. There are times when, yes, I'd come to church, but then my mind would be a bit far, and I felt like it was a burden because physically I'm in church, but I'm not there mentally. Yeah, so that time it used to be a burden until I started finding out like different ways of keeping the Sabbath, not the conventional way in which we do it. I'd have Bible studies with my friends, and also in the morning and also in the afternoon, the Bible studies usually have. Yeah, and so it's once I have those Bible studies, like I usually feel like really rejuvenated, and so I find like so much joy in getting to hear what people are saying. And if you're with your friends, then it's not a burden. You don't feel like it's a burden. But the time when if you feel like you're in church, like sometimes in the roles, you sometimes feel okay. I'm just going through the norms. But then I think there are different ways of keeping the Sabbath which I've become accustomed to, and right now it doesn't feel like a burden anymore. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And actually, before I move on to now the next kind of just following up on what Bobby has said, you guys, if you're SDA, tell us in the comments what do people say when you tell them that you're SDA? Like, just what crazy stories have you had when you tell someone I'm SDA? Like, what do they say to you? But just following up from what you said, Bobby, why do you keep the Sabbath then? Is it because maybe out of a show of love, or is it something that you've been brought up to just go that way when you go that way? Like, why is it that you keep it?
Okay, why do I keep the Sabbath? Okay, I've had many reasons, and I think my reasons have been evolving because I didn't grow up SDA. Like, I learned about the Adventist church when I was in high school, and at first, I grew up going to church on Sunday, and I've always known that Saturday was the Sabbath, but I've never really done it like that. No one has ever really shown me like the importance of keeping the Sabbath. Like, how I knew Christ died on Friday, he resurrected on Sunday, and Saturday was the Sabbath. But then I was told that, it was something that was done a baby, I didn't see the importance. But then with time, there's a book I read when God said to me in other books that actually really opened my eyes to what the Sabbath was really about. You know, like for it, number one, what created, you know, Genesis chapter 1, the creation story. The Sabbath is there. You go to the story of the Israelites, you know, it was a sign of trust in God, like God is actually able to provide. You remember the story where they're told that God is going to provide manna for 6 days, and on the seventh day, there's not going to be manna, you know, and so it was a test for the Israelites on trusting in God, you know, as their provider. And so for me, there's a time I used to keep the Sabbath because it's a commandment. What commandment says, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Then it's an act of me trusting in God to provide for my needs. And also, right now, I keep the Sabbath as an act of, as a sign of what God wants me to do. And that is to rest, to find rest in Him. The way Christ said, you know, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest for your souls. You know, and I'm like, with God, I need that rest. I need that rest mentally, spiritually, physically, and in many ways. And I'm like, okay, God, if you designed the Sabbath for in creation, you knew what you're doing. You put it in the Ten Commandments. You knew what you're doing. You tested the Israelites with it. Jesus came and he was kind of like, he kept the Sabbath. You know, and I'm like, God, okay, let me keep it as an act of trust in you. I may not understand it fully, but then let me just do it in obedience. You know, the way Abraham, he was told by God, okay, go to a land that I will show you. And he didn't really know where he was going. You know, so sometimes I'm like, okay, God, you mentioned it in your word. I may not really understand the full significance, but as an act of faith, I'm going to obey you. And so that's the reason I keep the Sabbath.
So like currently it's as an act of faith.
Yeah, as an act of faith and obedience. Yeah. To be honest, things are not 100% clear. There's a time when I was like, it's a commandment, therefore I have to keep it. You know, but then I'm like, God, I need to see your love here. I may not understand it fully, but let me just obey. You know that there's this story, a friend of mine shared, the story about the lepers who came to Christ and they're like, Christ told them, go show yourself to the priest. And the Bible says that as they went, they were healed. You know, it's through the process. They didn't know how they were going to get that healing. But as they obeyed the word of Christ, Christ told them, go show yourself. As they went, they became healed. So they didn't wait to be healed and then no go to the priest and they're like, okay, are we okay? You know, they didn't wait for Christ to heal them. Christ just told them, go. And so for me, even the Sabbath, if God has said, okay, Bobby, keep the Sabbath. I'm like, okay, God, I may not understand everything, but let me just obey you because, yeah, you're good. And yeah, you know more. You know, the Bible says that the law is spiritual. I am carnal. That's Romans 7. So I may not fully understand the spiritual significance of the Sabbath, but as an act of faith, I just tell God, I'll keep your Sabbath. So help me by your grace. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the moment, it's an act of faith.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And because you mentioned that you used to call it like this as a commandment, if you're looking for that, it's in Exodus chapter 20, the Ten Commandments. So that's from the perspective of someone who hasn't grown up SD, correct?
Yeah.
Wait, you said you've grown up SD. Do you keep the Sabbath because it's just what your parents said? Mm-hmm. Or is there another reason why you currently keep the Sabbath?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Proverbs says, train up a child in the way that you like, and they shall not depart from it. So growing up, I just knew we were going to church because mom and dad have said so, because that's what I know. So my grandparents, my great grandparents, so like I'm a third generation Adventist. From my great grandparents to my grandparents to now my parents. And growing up, I just understood that we are going to church because it's what we do. We are Adventists and we are keeping the commandment. So up until high school, I knew I'm doing it as a command. And if I don't do it, then you're banned. You know, I've sinned against God, and that was my understanding because if I've broken the commandments, then that's a sin and then I'm condemned. So that's how I understood the Sabbath. But then come high school and uni and now my understanding has changed. I don't just keep the Sabbath because it's custom, it's tradition to me. I keep the Sabbath because I came to an understanding that it's my response to God for the thing that He's done for me out of an appreciation of the gift of grace. Because I came to understand that on my own I cannot fulfill the law on my own strength, I can't keep the Sabbath. I don't even know up until now if how I keep the Sabbath is the right way. But then I can only pray that God enables me to keep the Sabbath. So right now, it's a response of the love that I have for God. It might not measure up because then again, I'm also human. I cannot love the creator of the universe the way he deserves to be loved for all the sacrifices that he's made for me. But I will still try because he says in that weakness will still be your strength. That small act of faith is going to multiply it. And that's why I keep the Sabbath out of, love for God.
Yeah, I think I'm the same because growing up it was just because mom said you're going to church.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to church then. And then it starts to feel like, to go to church a lot. Then it's like, but now it's a birthday on Saturday, mom, why can't I go? So that's how it feels like a burden. But I think now when I got to, is it university or high school? And you've gone through the week, and the weekend has slapped you like, please. And I say, what? Sabbath just comes because Sabbath is the day when you feel like I can rest, I can do nothing, not nothing, but nothing that I've done during the week. And I don't feel bad about it because God has said, anyway, just to rest. So that's when the Sabbath begins to feel like, hey, I'm keeping it because it's rest. It's genuine rest. Tanya, why do you practice Sabbath?
I
Have you also grown up as the yeah, tell us why.
Yeah, so I think mine is the same that growing up, obviously, when you're young, your parents or the, authoritative figures around you, your guardians are the ones who guide what you do. So church for me was because obviously my family goes to church and there's no way you're going to be left in the house alone. What are you being left for? So all of you go together in the same direction. And then I think for me, at some point, when I got a bit more of a voice, let's say around high school, and because I didn't understand God's intention of giving us a Sabbath for rest, I stopped coming to church. And over time, life does you in, life will develop your character and it will take you to rock bottom. And there's a really beautiful quote that I read at some point that said, when life gets you to rock bottom, you'll realize that God is the rock at the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think after high school, around university is when I started building my relationship with God, reading my word, and understanding what He wanted for me and how good He actually is. I think a younger me just knew God as, I don't know, just we go to church and God is at church, or I don't know how I viewed God, but I didn't have that connection, that relationship with Him. And so I think once I started to see how good He was in my life, even when things weren't going right, even when I couldn't really, like, how would I put it? When I couldn't really figure things out, God was there, And once you start to realize how much He loves you and how good He is, you gravitate towards Him. So the Sabbath for me, once I built that relationship with God and started to truly perceive God's love for me, again, like you said, my Sabbath keeping became a response to His love for me. Like, it was this thing of I want to spend time with Him. So the Sabbath immediately became attractive to me. So one day it's undistracted time with God. Like, it's not like the other days of the week where you do your devotion, go to school, come back home, you get to pray a little, and like fast to go on. The Sabbath is completely undistracted time with God.
Yeah. Amen. Because actually, I think it's the more you grow up that you realize how important the Sabbath is, not just as a commandment, but as a show of love of God towards you. Because like in Mark chapter 2, verse 27, it says, open your Bibles. It says, Mark chapter 2, verse 27, and He said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. So it's like, God made this day for us so that we can be the ones to rest because He knows 6 days are long. The week is long, you guys. Yeah. But he said, let me just give you this 1 day where you can just rest. That's because he loves us that much and he knows. And I know you need this. And I know maybe even the time that you spent with me during the week, it wasn't sufficient. So he had just take this day. Let's just have it together. I think Travis said in the past episode, like that's his date with God. That's the day where you say like this is just me and you, no distractions, just you and me. So I think the more you understand the Sabbath less as do this, come to my church today, like and you understand it more it's just like I love you so much, come and rest, then it becomes easier to go about it. And then that brings the question, how do you go about sort of like avoiding things? I don't want to say avoiding, but at the same time I don't know which other word to use. But like how do you go about avoiding things that would make you break the Sabbath? So do you find yourself in a situation where people stop inviting you to things because she's never available on Saturday and we put everything on Saturday? Do you ever find yourself in those situations, or is it just like you said, all your friends are SBs? So the bar is not even a Saturday. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. But so yeah, you're at peace. So on this side of the room, do you ever find yourself in those situations where like maybe you've lost a friend because of that, or you never end up going anywhere because it all happens on Saturday?
I start with you.
Good start.
Okay. How do I actually avoid things on the Sabbath? I think first of all, just communicating to the people around you that your Saturdays are for God and God only, and if they want to see you on that day, then they have to meet you where God is at, right? Then another thing is, as you grow up, I think you also start to realize that you have to stand by your values and not go with like everyone and everything. Like there are people who you will do simply because you've chosen certain things and certain ways of living, and you have to become okay with that. But I think that's also made me aware of who my true friends are. Like my true friends have never dropped me. They'll move things around my Sabbath keeping. So that's how I've navigated that.
Okay, that's a really important point. Friends, the friends that you keep around you, and then the friends who will say, I just sleep shy. But then the friends who will say, hey, it's Friday, 6 p.m., the sun is setting, go home, prepare for my days. Yeah. So, Bobby, tell us.
For me, I think over the years, I've also had a close, like Philip and Tanya, like a close circle of friends who you share values with. And if most of your friends are in church on Saturday, then it means that you're also there. And for me, they also have friends from different churches. And if there's an activity, a godly activity that's happening on Saturday, then I'd definitely join. If you're going to a children's home, if you're practicing for a concert, and so many things, I'd definitely join them. Yeah, so for me, Saturdays, I just find myself, because of the grace of God, I find myself in spaces where I enjoy going to church on Saturday. And sometimes it's usually a bit difficult because you meet clients and they're like, okay, I'm free on Saturdays, so what do? You just have to explain that Saturdays are not available. Let's kind of reschedule. And sometimes it's a bit heavy. It's not like you're like, just a client, you don't disappoint them. You might say no, they're like, okay, I'll just get someone else. And it's happened before. Yes, I've rejected work on Saturday, and I'm like, you know what, God, you said you're not supposed to pick money on this day, and that you're going to provide for us. And God has come through in ways that I can't expect. You lose a job, you get one that's paying like 10 times more. If it's a gig, and you're like, God, thank you. Yeah, so with time, I think God has also consistently proven himself faithful. Yeah, and so it becomes a bit easier sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you have to talk to your friends and be like, bro, I got this job, what do you think? And tribes will tell me, Bobby, just trust in God. And you're like, okay, you have to make the hard decision. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you need the support of that friend who will just say, yeah, that one is not for, don't do that. To hold you up. Is the Sabbath something that you feel you have to prepare for, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally? I think people prepare in different ways. There's this thing that people say before Holy Communion. Okay, not gonna say it, people say, but what do you say? Before Holy Communion, take the week, prepare, some people fast and like that. But not just for the Sabbath alone. Are there things that you do, whether it's as a routine or with your family, that helps you prepare for what the Sabbath will be?
Well, for me, I start thinking about my Sabbath outfit on Sunday. The Sunday after the Sunday yeah, I mean, I'd like to shop my best for God. So I'll start thinking and having an idea of what I want to wear. Then the night before is when I'm checking that outfit and
I want it by your bed, like I think it's a banana.
But other than that, also, I prepare spiritually in the sense that because I know we're going to have Bible study in the afternoon and we're also going to have lesson study in the morning, I make a deliberate effort to study the word and to search scripture like really deeply. And if I have questions throughout the week, I throw them sometimes to Bobby, or other times I'll note them down in my notebook and make sure I can come and discuss with people so that I don't leave any stone unturned in my personal devotion. But other than that, guys, I'm a fan of Dukla. I mean, you watched the last episode. You know you're Adventist when you like sing the, chorusing and everything. So Friday nights, that's usually how I invite God, or rather I get into that Sabbath feel. If there's some Dumcha, okay, if you don't know what Dumcha is, I know Google. I'll put on. I know I am good. But I'll put on a Dumcha song or a gospel song. Like I really like One Name by Naomi Rain. So I'd like to meditate on the words of that song and just tell God, this week has just been like this, and that. And as I enter into your rest, I need to know that you're going to take care of this. That's like my routine. Every Friday evening, I must sleep knowing that I have sung that one song. If it's One Name, if it's Holy by Cece Winans, something to just get me into the Sabbath feel, and something that sort of reassures me that all those burdens that I carry throughout the week, I have left them there, and God is going to, take it and right the wrongs and do it for me. Yeah.
Burdens are lifted at Calvary. Calvary there. Okay, do you prepare in any way?
Yes, we listen. Okay, there's a time I used to prepare. There's a time I used to prepare to make sure everything is set. Friday, sunset kwa nyumba na Bible, singing. Yeah, but then at the moment, it's more I just it just happens. Yeah, but then there's a group I study with on Sabbath mornings. Okay, Saturday mornings, and like we'll be going through the book of John. Yeah, so we do either chapter or two chapters. So I can do the previous night or Saturday morning. Yeah, but I don't. Maybe it's a bad thing. I need to change. I don't really think about it so much. Yeah, for me, I'm just easy with it. Yeah.
But yes, it's something that you need to think about actually.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Tell us why. Tell us why.
Okay, now that you're having this conversation, we're prepared. In the Bible, Friday used to be preparation day, and it was actually before Saturday. That's the Sabbath, and God wanted people to prepare themselves before they even came into His presence. Take it slow. Cool down. Like the week has been, all over. So yeah, I think it's important not just to rush into the presence of God, just to be still and prepare and meditate and just invite. I did say invite God into your presence, but no. Yeah, but just get into God's presence and not in a rush, just being still. Yeah, but then sometimes when I'm going home, I usually I'm having my earphones, listen to gospel music. Yeah, but it's definitely something that I'm learning now from it. from
Faith.
yeah, from faith.
Yeah, same. Send us your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, what you said is true because even in Luke 23:54, that was after Jesus had been crucified. What did I say? Luke 23:54. And it says, then that's 53. 54 says, that day was a preparation and the Sabbath drew near. So it's a very conscious thing. I know that I don't know if this happens in all SDA households, but in a lot of them, you you prepare like your food, your potluck the day before sunset. Everything's like just set out. Others are ironing their clothes, others are doing this and this. Because once Sabbath reaches, you just need to sit down and just start being like, okay, God, now enter my mind. And it's really hard for God's presence to just be in your mind when you're busy. You're making the beans, the cabbage, chapo, you know that nini. Yeah. So it's really hard to have this God in your mind. Do you prepare that one?
I think more mentally than spiritually. Like it's like studying the lesson. I don't know, this is how too much because sometimes I'm not the best lesson studier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think because I see the Sabbath as a reset type of day for me, I use my Friday evenings, how I get myself mentally, spiritually prepared. I use Friday evenings to reflect on my week, reflect on what lessons have I learned, or where did I fall short, or where has God improved me in certain areas, just to reflect and, give gratitude and basically bear the burdens of my heart and just basically, give God what I want Him to work on for the following week. And so that once I've done that, I feel like I'm ready for my Sabbath. I come in to church, or if I'm not coming to church, just spending my Sabbath doing the online service and other, devotional content. I've given God almost what I want Him to work on in me through my Sabbath rest. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you guys feel like people misunderstand the Sabbath, like as a day and as a commandment, just in general? Do you feel like people misunderstand it? And what's something that you wish they would understand about what the Sabbath is? Yeah, I'll start with you.
Okay. Do people misunderstand the Sabbath? I think some people do. I think sometimes people focus more on the appearances or the work elements of it, like showing up in your best clothes and showing at church on time and showing you're seen at lesson discussion, coming for the service, stay the whole afternoon, it's more of
It's like front row.
exactly what you see in church instead of using it as what you in the presence of God, So I think that's one thing that people need to understand for those who don't, that the Sabbath is time to be in God's presence. I'm not sure where the Bible it says where 2 or 3 gather, that the presence of the Lord is with them, yeah. So the Sabbath is a day to go before God, not to go before people, not to go before the church. You are there for God. Yeah.
Toby, what do you think?
For me, I think yes, people do misunderstand the Sabbath. I think that one of the things I realized that most people misunderstand is that they think it's an Adventist thing. Like, the way it's Seventh Day Adventist. But then, as I've been studying, I realized that this is something which God created for the entire world. When God was creating the world in Genesis, He was like, He looked, everything was good, 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 good. And He Himself, the creator of the universe, rested, and He's like, I'm going to put it in the fourth commandment. And, I feel like it should be something so, let me use the word Catholic, meaning universal. Like, it's something which, the way someone can say, I'm a Christian, I've put my faith in Jesus. And they're like, they don't ask about your denomination. It's something which cuts across every Christian denomination. There's this book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity, where he's going to speak about things that are common with Christians. He takes like a house as an analogy and he says the house is Christianity, but we have different rooms which are not the denominations. So you're under one roof, but then you have common beliefs. Yes, you might differ. Some will say make prefer staying in the kitchen, others like may like the living room, others I like the bedroom, But then I think the Sabbath is something which, if most Christians understood, like you'll be like, this is something which will be embraced by every Christian. Not just it should not be like a Seventh Day Adventist thing, but something which if someone says I go to church on Saturday, they're like, oh, so you're a Christian. It's something that's it's not you belong to this denomination. It's something which God has given the entire world. Not just a few people and then the rest. Yeah, so I feel like it would be really, really good if most Christians actually studied more about the Sabbath and they're like, maybe this is something that God created for the world, out of his love and his mercy. And yeah, so I feel like people linking it to a denomination is something that's misconstrued. Yeah, but the Bible, it's something, it's a biblical doctrine. Yeah, not something for a denomination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Jews go to church or they worship on Saturday, yeah?
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever told someone I go to church on Saturday, then they'll ask me, are you a Jew? Like, no one's ever asked me that. It's always, are you an SDA? So it's like SDAs are the ones most associated with the day, but it's something that should be universal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really it is.
Biblically it is. And the Bible is universal.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the Sabbath be universal?
Yeah.
I mean, I really like what Bobby and Tanya have said, and they reminded me what I read in the morning. I read that we serve God out of principle and not out of feeling. Now, if you serve God out of feeling, then you begin to feel as, Sabbath is a burden. You begin to see the wrongs in Sabbath keeping instead of what Sabbath keeping stands for. Now, if I read Exodus 20, I'm just going to read verse 8 and verse 11. It reads, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Okay, then let's skip. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you nor your servant, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. Verse 11 reads, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Now, if you look at that deeply, it points to the principle that Sabbath is not just about rest, but it's about resting in the Redeemer. Sabbath is to magnify Christ in all of it, because the Bible is a summary of what Christ did for us. It's a story on salvation. And I think for me, what I hold dear to my heart is Sabbath reveals to me my need for the Savior, which is Christ. And it reminds me that Christ really did it all for me. I just need to come and rest in Him. I just need to present that burden to Him. And even when I don't feel like it, I need to surrender that feeling to Him. Because, sometimes, let's just not lie, sometimes you just don't feel like coming to church. And it's not that God has wronged you or you've wronged God or somebody in the congregation is going to stone you or something. You just don't feel the Sabbath, no matter what kind of preparation you do the night before. But then once you surrender that feeling to God and you tell Him, I don't feel like coming into this rest, but I want you to bring me into that rest. He will do something about it. I think that's something important that we need to look at. Like Bobby said, it's not just an SBA kind of thing. This is something that God meant for it to be universal. Otherwise, why would He institute it as creation if it was just meant to be for one set of people, right? And so, in that universality, let's look at the principle behind it. Let's look at the Savior and the rest. Yeah.
Oh, you guys have been real fast. I'm just like, okay. But yeah, you guys have said like really profound things about the Sabbath, and I feel it's definitely a conversation that we're going to continue to have, especially on which day is the Sabbath. We believe it's Saturday, but obviously there are people out there who believe it's Sunday or who don't really have a day. It's just you can worship any day. So it's definitely another conversation that we're going to have. Join us next time. On when is the Sabbath? Kind of what principles guide the Sabbath. Are you breaking the Sabbath if you do this or if you don't do that, and all that kind of thing. So we're going to continue to have these conversations. So thank you guys for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we hope that you join us for the next ones to come. So yeah, bye bye.
Bye.